Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and I like to talk about books, and today we are continuing on with my 12 Days of Holiday Novellas series. This is going to be day 2 slash part 2 slash books 2 and 3 of the 12 Days of Holiday Novellas. After the absolute cringe fest that was Can I Tell You Something, the first book that I picked for this series, I really felt like I needed to turn things around and move things in a more positive direction. So I decided to go with two authors that I've read from before, that I've really loved before, so that we can maybe get things moving in a more fun direction. So I decided to pick up Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria and A Cruel Winter with You by Hazelwood. These are both part of the Kindle Unlimited Amazon original series Under the Mistletoe, which is a collection of short holiday novellas, all by different authors. I believe there's 5 different holiday novellas within this series, so to be determined on if any of the other ones end up making it into this series. But both of these books were around like 50 to 70 pages, and Kindle Unlimited has these offered as ebooks or audiobooks. So it felt like a good option. Felt like. Keyword. There was an attempt to read good books here. Starting with Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria, I read A Lot Like Adios a while ago, but I absolutely loved it. This was like my first second chance romance that I really loved. Like, it didn't feel like either of the characters within the story like really did any real harm to each other. It was more just like wrong place, wrong time, right person. And I really, really loved the dynamic between the characters, and I loved how they were written. So I was excited to get into more from Alexis Daria. But yeah, let's get into the details. So our main character, Evie Cruz, is a comic book illustrator, and she has finally made it through this huge deadline for a project that has completely taken over her life. She had moved into this new apartment a couple months back and just hadn't had the chance to decorate her apartment at all. She like still has all of her stuff in boxes. So the fact that she even managed to just have like a bare Christmas tree is impressive in and of itself. The fact that there are no ornaments on it is a little sad, but like, she tried. You know, it's the effort that counts. Anyways, Evie has this huge crush on her upstairs neighbor, Theo. Theo is just tall, handsome, helpful, and just like an overall dream. And every single time that Evie runs into him, she is just like an absolute disaster. Like, when they first met and he helped the movers get her couch up the stairs, she was like sweating profusely and a mess. At one point in time, he makes sure that the leak in his apartment isn't damaging anything from her apartment. And when he comes downstairs, she's literally in like her worst pajamas, messy hair, hasn't brushed her teeth, just like, again, a mess. And like, at that point in time, not only is she a mess, but her apartment is also a mess. And then she feels the need to explain the fact that the Christmas tree in the corner that he helped her bring up the stairs is still empty because she's on this big project, and she just feels the need to justify her entire living situation. But finally, she's through this deadline and she has an opportunity to prove that she is not always a mess. She can prove that sometimes she's just hot. Their neighbor apparently hosts this Christmas party every year, and this year the theme is Only Santa's in the Building, so everyone has to dress up as Santa. Evie decides to dress up as none other than the Queen of Christmas herself, Mariah Carey, while our handy neighbor Theo decides to take more of a traditional approach and is Santa from Santa's workshop, aka he puts a Santa hat on his head and wears a tool belt because he's so handy. Oh, and while she's at this Christmas party, she also plans to thank her elderly neighbor, who she believes has been the one hanging the handmade Christmas ornaments on her front door. And I will pause here before I get into too many spoilers, in case there are those of you out there that would like to read this book for yourselves and not have it spoiled, but I do think you can probably see where I'm going with this plot. Go ahead, click away. Okay, so now that it's just us and we can be nosy neighbors, let's get into the sweet stuff. Because this book was so incredibly sweet. Theo has literally been crushing on Evie since the first day he helped her move in, but he didn't really have an opportunity to ask her on a date because she always just seemed so busy, and he also didn't want to make her uncomfortable because she's moving into this new place and he's her neighbor and he wanted her to feel safe in her home, so he didn't want to like come on too strong. So he decides not to push it and just stays like very present and helpful in Evie's life, but doesn't push things too far. But some might say he played it too coy. So when Evie comes to the Christmas party ready to just wow Theo, she is a little surprised to learn that it does not take much. Like, the moment that they start talking, they have such strong chemistry, and she's like, wow, I was not expecting this. And then with some meddling from their neighbors towards the end of the night, they do end up finding themselves under the mistletoe. And they're both just kind of like, so are you okay with this? Yeah. Are you okay with this? Okay. And then from there, they just go. And they do not stop at the kiss under the mistletoe. They then decide to. Okay, you know what I mean. He says this and she's like, oh, you promise? And then, of course, Evie finds out that Theo is the one making those darling Christmas ornaments for her Christmas tree. Theo doesn't really understand the full scope of why Evie's tree is empty. He just assumes it's because she's busy with work, which isn't untrue, but there's also this whole emotional element to her empty Christmas tree as well. Evie was actually the main caretaker of her grandmother, who she had been living with before she moved into this apartment. Her grandmother passed away very unexpectedly, and the moment that her grandmother passed away, her uncle inherited the house and he immediately sold it. So not only did Evie have to deal with this sudden loss of her grandmother, who she was very, very close to, but also she had to then immediately find somewhere else to live. And she was in the middle of this big project for work. And so she was just completely like in survival mode for a couple months there. Evie's Christmas tree was empty because all of the Christmas ornaments that she had were from her grandmother, that she inherited from her grandmother, and they were packed away in boxes still. And that was just something she wasn't mentally or physically able to handle in that moment. So Theo gifting these ornaments would sweet on any occasion, but with the added just emotional effect, it was so incredibly sweet. And when Evie becomes aware of the fact that Theo is the one making these ornaments, she explains to him what it means to her, and they both kind of tear up about it. And it kind of made me want to consider tearing up about it as well. Now, I'm not saying everything was perfect about this one. I will say that Evie has a very like online millennial style of humor, and I should know being a fairly online millennial myself. I think if this had been limited to just like one or two moments in the story, it wouldn't have been as obnoxious, but it's pretty prevalent throughout the entire story. I was definitely getting a few moments of secondhand embarrassment. Not anything like totally unbearable, but it was definitely there. Like I could have gone without her saying, "You mean because you're built like the abominable snowman and I'm the size of a sugar plum fairy?" I didn't need that. Like, I wanna say no, I wanna say that wasn't necessary, but then at the same time, is it a holiday novella if it doesn't have, like, a little bit of secondhand embarrassment? I have yet to see one without any. Even so, I had a really good time reading this one. I feel like things were paced out really well, so even though it was short, it never really felt rushed, and it still had these slower moments for the emotional impact. And on top of all of that, there was a lot of holiday cheer. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and rate Only Santa's in the Building 3 ornamental jingle horses. Okay, so it's been like no time for you, but for me, it's been like 3, 4 hours. So let's just get back into it. We are going through A Cruel Winter with You by Allie Hazelwood. So after I read Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria, it was only natural that I was like, okay, I am on a high, I'm on a roll, I want to keep going. So I picked up the Allie Hazelwood book. And I'm not saying that I ever like go into Allie Hazelwood books thinking that they're going to be literary masterpieces, but I'm always consistently surprised that I like them. Like, I don't know what it is. Every time I pick it up, I think, "Oh, it's not gonna be for me," and then I read it and I'm like, "Oh, I kinda liked it, like, a lot." Like, it took me forever to read Check and Mate, and then it ended up being, like, one of my favorites. So again, I was not going into this book thinking it was going to be some sort of literary masterpiece, but at the same time, I did expect it to follow the, like, traditional Allie Hazelwood formula. A quirky leading lady, a seemingly distant, attractive giant, a misunderstanding, and some forced proximity. And in that way, this novel was exactly what I thought it was going to be. But at the same time, there were so many things that did not work for me. Like, there were several moments where if you just took that like one singular moment, it was really nice, really sweet, really good. But if you zoomed out too far, you realize that this actually makes no sense at all. It's nonsensical. Starting with, but absolutely not limited to the fact that this title, A Cruel Winter with You, a fun play on A Cruel Summer with You by Taylor Swift, has nothing to do with the song. It is not the vibe of the song. It is like the lyrics of the song do not play into this in any way, shape, or form. It is literally just the title, and that's it. But let's get into the actual details. So in Cruel Winter with You, we have our leading lady Jane. She is a people-pleasing overachiever with abandonment issues who returns home for the holidays. She ends up heading out in a blizzard on Christmas Eve at her dad's insistence that she go to her best friend's house and get a copper pot. No, a copper pan. The only thing is that her best friend and her best friend's family are all out of town on a cruise, so she's just planning on like going in and grabbing this pot. Apparently they're close enough that they can do that. Pan, not pot. However, the one person who is home at her best friend's house is her best friend's younger brother, Mark. And what do you know? Jamie and Mark have a history together that literally starts since birth, but we'll get back to that later. As the synopsis says, he's the one who got away and she's the one who broke his heart. So Mark is pretty surprised to see Jamie on his doorstep in a blizzard. So obviously he insists that she stay there until it's safe enough to leave. So there they are, snowed in on Christmas Eve together. I guess they're gonna just have to talk. And it appears that talk is long overdue. So let's rewind a bit all the way back to the beginning. Mark's beginning, to be specific, because Jamie remembers it vividly, down to the exact words and thoughts that she had when she visited Mark in the hospital after his mother gave birth to him. Jamie explains that she met Mark before Tabitha, his sister, even got to meet her because Tabitha was throwing a fit. She didn't want a sibling. So Jamie says, I ended up meeting her new sibling before she did. I was eager to report back that competition-wise, she had nothing to fear. The red creature squirming in my arms had a scrunched up face, wrinkly nose, pimply cheeks, folded ears, old man hair, and was covered in dried crust. It reminded me of sugar cookies Dad would bake over the holidays. In particular, the ones that didn't come out of the oven quite right. Unfortunate looking, he'd call them. The description fit well. The thing in my lap clearly did not have a single ounce of fortune. What's her name? I asked Mrs. Compton. His, Dad corrected me. He's a boy, honey. Suddenly, everything made sense. That's why he's so ugly. So clearly, Jamie is able to remember this moment in vivid, clear detail at the big age of 2 years old. 2 2 years old. I don't know about you, but my second year of life did not make the long journey to my hippocampus. That time of my life was strictly short-term memories. I may have some like hazy memories of the house I lived in general, but I'm not remembering word for word conversations at all. And now that I'm thinking about it, was I even having full conversations at 2 years old? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I have a terrible memory, but this sounds absurd. No. Just no. The other thing that really bugged me about this story is that the entire time Mark seems to have Jamie up on this pedestal and it never gets challenged. So on the night of Jamie and Tabitha's prom, Mark gets them into trouble. So in a fit of rage, Tabitha reveals that Mark is in love with Jamie. When Jamie tries to talk to Mark about this, he reveals that like yes, it's true, but that he doesn't want to pursue anything with Jamie yet because he wants to earn her. Like he wants to deserve her. He thinks she deserves the best and he doesn't think he's the best, so he's waiting until he deserves her. This is reiterated again when they both come home from college for the holidays. Jamie encourages Mark to follow his dreams and do what he thinks is best in terms of his tech startup. Mark reiterates again, he loves her, he wants to earn her. This is entirely confusing because Mark is a total catch. He's smart, funny, charming, popular, successful, attractive. They just never really explore why he feels the need to prove that he deserves her. At no point in time did he seem lacking. And we waste a lot of time with those scenes. Like they waste years with him just being like, I love you. I want to earn you. I want to deserve you. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? And then when Mark's business is super successful and he feels he has earned or deserves a chance with Jamie, it goes from like 0 to 6,000, not even 60, 0 to 6,000. The moment that Jamie is single, he confesses love, and not just in an I love you, I've always loved you kind of way. He's like throwing around the words wife. Specifically, he says, I want to introduce you to every single person I've ever met as my wife. I want to travel back to Illinois with you for the holidays. I want the two of us to be on the same team when we play Pictionary with our families. And he pressed a firm kiss against my lips. I want to give you the world, Jamie. Just let me, please. It's a lot, like a lot. And Jamie is immediately overwhelmed. She doesn't believe him. She's got this like fear of abandonment that makes her immediately doubt everything that he's saying. So her instinct is to just like freeze up, push him away, and like push him away by saying really mean things and then walking away. So this ultimately leads us to the misunderstanding that we're in on Christmas Eve at the start of this story, because it turns out that Jamie almost immediately regretted every single thing that she said to Mark. She did want to be with him, and she realized that the next day, and that she knew that she was just acting out in fear. She wanted a chance to be with him. So what does she do? She calls him on the phone. She leaves a voicemail when he doesn't answer. Just a voicemail. She leaves this voicemail, long-winded, saying, I do want a chance with you. I think I could love you. I want to be with you. I want to try. He never responds. So she never sends any other form of communication. He just never checked his voicemail. Never bothered to check his voicemail. So literally what happened is they have this conversation. He professes his love. She walks away. She immediately calls him and is like, no, I think we should try. But he never gets it. So she never follows up and neither does he. And that is so lazy to me, like lazy for them, but also just like lazy writing. It just seems stupid, you know? I don't know. I hate it. Once this misunderstanding is revealed, they immediately run headfirst into their happily ever after. The book ending was actually super sweet and just highlighted the fact that this book did have some really great moments on like a micro level. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture, it actually makes no sense. Anyways, this story ends with Mark monologuing again. He essentially says that he realizes that he came on a little too strong the first time around and that he's not going to tell Jamie that he loves her again because it's just too soon, but he is looking forward to the fact that next year will be different. He specifically says, but make no mistake, Jamie, next year when we fly home for the holidays, we're going to do it together. We'll show up at your dad's at the same time. We'll sleep in the same room, either here or in yours. Everyone's going to know that you're mine and I'm yours. And before we fall asleep, you'll let me say it. And Jamie responds, next year before we fall asleep, I'm going to say it back. A very cute moment for a total nonsense Christmas story. Sabrina Carpenter would be so proud. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Sabrina Carpenter would probably have been a better title reference for this book instead of Taylor Swift. Regardless, I will be rating A Cruel Winter with You, one devil rolling the dice, and two angels rolling their eyes. That is going to be it for today's 12 days of holiday novellas. Let me know in a comment below if you have a holiday novella suggestion that I should include in this series. While you're down there, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next videos. And if you're still here with me right now, thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Mwah.